The handcuffs clicked shut around my son's wrists, and for the first time in months, I smiled. "Dad, how could you do this to me?" Marcus whispered as they dragged him away. "I'm your only child." "I know," I said quietly. "And that's exactly why you never saw it coming. But let me tell you how a lifetime of trust became the perfect weapon for revenge." Before we continue, I request that you please let me know where you are watching from. It helps me know how far my stories are reaching. Now, let's get back to today's story. I sat in my favorite armchair watching my son pace the living room. The pension documents lay scattered across the coffee table like accusations, and 42-year-old Marcus was selling his pitch with the desperation of a drowning man. "Dad, you're not listening. This investment opportunity won't wait. My contact at Meridian Capital needs the funds transferred by Friday, or the deal dies." I adjusted my reading glasses, studying his face. The same blue eyes I'd passed down, but where I saw calculation in the mirror, Marcus radiated barely contained panic. 40 years I paid into that pension, boy. Which is exactly why it's criminal what the government takes in taxes. Marcus slammed his palm against the mantelpiece. "Look at these numbers. If we roll it into this private equity fund, you'll triple your money in 18 months. Triple." The word hung in the air like bait on a hook. I'd heard similar promises before, usually right before someone tried to fleece me. But Marcus wasn't just anyone. He was blood. "Show me again," I said quietly. Marcus's eyes lit up as he scrambled for the glossy brochures. Meridian specializes in distressed real estate. They buy up foreclosed properties, flip them, and sell at massive profits. "Look here, their last fund returned 340% to investors." I pretended to study the numbers, but my attention was on Marcus. The slight tremor in his hands. The way he kept glancing at his phone. The fine sheen of sweat despite the cool October air. "You seem mighty eager for me to do this, son. Because I care about you. Mom's medical bills cleaned out your savings. This pension is all you've got left. Don't you want to leave something behind? For the grandkids?" The grandkids. My chest tightened thinking of little Emmy and Jake, Marcus's children who lived 3 states away with his ex-wife. I hadn't seen them in over a year. "These Meridian people, they're friends of yours?" "Business associates. I've been working with them on several deals." Marcus sat forward, voice dropping to an urgent whisper. "Dad, I need to tell you something. I'm in some trouble." Here it comes, I thought. The real reason. What kind of trouble? Bad investments. Some deals went south, and I owe some people money. A lot of money. His hands shook. "If I don't pay them back by month's end." He didn't finish, but the implication hung heavy. I'd raised this boy, taught him to throw a curveball, helped with homework, walked him down the aisle. Now here he was, asking me to hand over my life's work to save his hide. "How much do you owe?" 50,000. I let out a low whistle. That's a hell of a hole. The Meridian deal would solve everything. We invest your pension, it grows, I get my commission, and I can pay off my debts. Everyone wins. Everyone wins. I almost laughed at the beautiful simplicity. "And if this deal goes bad?" Marcus grabbed my hand. "Dad, I would never put you at risk. These guys are legitimate. This is as close to a sure thing as you'll ever see." I looked down at our joined hands. His felt cold and clammy. "You're asking me to bet my future on your judgment, son." "Yes, and I'm asking you to trust me." Trust. Such a fragile thing. I'd learned that lesson 30 years ago when my business partner cleaned out our accounts and disappeared to Costa Rica. But this was Marcus. This was family. Let me think about it overnight. "Dad, there's no time." Overnight. My voice carried the finality that had ended arguments when he was growing up. After he left, I sat in growing darkness. Something felt wrong. Too rehearsed. Too desperate. The sweating, the trembling hands, the way he kept checking his phone. I reached for the phone and dialed a number I'd memorized but hoped never to use. "Dunbar Investigations. Rex? It's Elias Corrigan. I need a favor." The next morning, Marcus arrived early with Krispy Kreme donuts. My weakness since childhood. He was trying too hard. "Did you think about what we discussed?" He set coffee beside my chair, same spot where he'd placed Christmas presents as a boy. I did. I took a slow sip, letting silence stretch. "Tell me more about these Meridian people." I source potential investors. High net worth individuals looking for alternative investments. "And your commission?" 5% of any funds I bring in. 25,000 on a $500,000 pension. Not nearly enough to solve a $50,000 problem. My phone buzzed. Text from Rex Dunbar. Found something concerning. Meet me at the diner on 5th Street. 1 hour. Marcus, I need to run errands. Come by this evening. His face fell. Dad, we're running out of time. Then one more day won't matter. At the diner, Rex looked grim as he slid a folder across the table. Your boy's in deeper than he told you, Elias. I called my buddy who works fraud cases. Marcus has been borrowing from multiple sources, credit cards, personal loans, cash advances, online lenders. My heart sank. What about Meridian Capital? Real company, but they only deal with institutional investors. Minimum investment is $5 million. Rex's voice dropped. No way they'd take your pension money, and definitely no way they'd pay Marcus a commission. So the whole pitch is complete nonsense. But here's the kicker. I found records of at least 6 different loans in the past year. Credit cards maxed out, personal loans from 3 banks, 2 payday operations. How much does he really owe? Best estimate? Somewhere north of $200,000. The number hit like a physical blow. 4 times what he'd admitted. And my pension? About $500,000. If he's planning what I think, he takes your money, pays off enough debt to keep breathing, and disappears with the rest. I stared out the window. He's really going to steal from his own father. People do desperate things when cornered. But you called me, which means you suspected. What's your play? I thought about the pieces I'd quietly put in place. Marcus always was too smart for his own good. But he underestimated his old man. What do you need? Documentation. Everything you found, notarized and dated. And Rex? I want you to call Detective Rodriguez. It's time to set a trap. That evening, Marcus returned with his girlfriend, a 28-year-old blonde named Ashley who wore too much makeup and a dress that cost more than my monthly groceries. Dad, I want you to meet Ashley. We're talking about getting engaged. I shook her manicured hand, noting the expensive jewelry. For someone supposedly helping my son through financial troubles, she had expensive tastes. Congratulations. We're considering a destination wedding, Ashley said. Maybe Costa Rica? Costa Rica. Non-extradition country. Some patterns never change. Marcus, have you given more thought to our conversation? Actually, that's why we're here. Marcus perched like a sprinter waiting for the starting gun. I talked to Meridian, and they agreed to extend the deadline until Monday. That gives us the weekend to review everything. That's considerate. The thing is, we'd like to get the paperwork started tonight. Nothing gets transferred until Monday, but this way we're ready to move. What kind of paperwork? Marcus pulled out a thick folder. Power of attorney, so I can handle the pension rollover. Investment agreements. Tax forms. Power of attorney. The golden key to everything I owned. I don't know, son. That's a big step. Dad, I know it's scary. But think about Mom. Think about how she worried about money those last months. Using Martha's memory as manipulation. My grief as a weapon. I had to admire the calculated cruelty, even as it broke my heart. She did worry, I said softly. This is your chance to honor her memory. Marcus leaned forward. What would she tell you to do? She'd tell me to throw you out, I thought. But instead, she'd tell me to trust my family. Exactly. Marcus pulled out an expensive pen. One signature, Dad. I took the pen, feeling its weight. Where do I sign? Marcus flipped to the signature page, practically vibrating with excitement. Right here. I signed slowly, carefully. Elias Corrigan. The same signature on my marriage certificate, on Marcus's birth certificate, on 40 years of pension paperwork. There. I set down the pen. It's done. Marcus grabbed the papers before ink was dry. Dad, you won't regret this. You're right, I thought. I won't. After they left, I called Rex. It's done. Tomorrow morning, he'll discover what real betrayal feels like. The next morning, Marcus called at 7:30, voice tight with panic. Dad, there's a problem. The pension company says there's some kind of hold on your account. What kind of hold? They won't say. Something about a fraud investigation. His voice cracked. They want you to come downtown. Where? Federal Building on Market Street. Can you meet me there at 10? I'll be there. But I didn't go to the Federal Building. Instead, I drove to my attorney's office, where Jim Morrison was waiting with fresh coffee and a satisfied smile. Everything's in place, Elias. I called the district attorney's office this morning. They're very interested in your son's activities. And the pension? Frozen as of 8 this morning. Temporary hold pending investigation of suspected elder fraud. I felt grim satisfaction settle in my chest. How long before he figures out what's happening? Right about. Jim's phone rang. He grinned. Now. My phone started buzzing. Marcus calling. I let it ring. Then texts. Dad, where are you? They're saying the pension account is frozen. Something's wrong. Call me back. Dad, what's going on? What happens next? Now we see how desperate he really is. 20 minutes later, Jim's phone rang. Detective Rodriguez, he said, putting it on speaker. Frank, you're on with Elias Corrigan. Mr. Corrigan, we've reviewed the evidence your investigator provided. We'd like to move forward with charges, but we need you to wear a wire when you meet with him. Get him to admit on tape that he was planning to steal your pension. My hands started shaking. Recording my own son felt like the final betrayal. But then I thought about other elderly people Marcus might target. When would this happen? Today? He's panicking, which makes him vulnerable to making mistakes. What do I need to do? An hour later, I sat in Detective Rodriguez's office, a recording device taped to my chest and a wireless microphone clipped inside my shirt. The detective was a thick-set man with intelligent eyes and the patient demeanor of someone who'd spent years getting confessions. Remember, Mr. Corrigan, get him talking. Ask direct questions about his plans for your pension money. The more specific he gets, the stronger our case. What if he gets suspicious? Then we move in immediately. We'll have units positioned around your house. Rex handed me a panic button. If things go sideways, push this. I looked at the recording equipment, the faces of the men helping me destroy my son. Detective, in all your years doing this, have you ever seen a father do this to his own child? Rodriguez's expression softened. More often than you'd think, sir. Financial desperation makes people do terrible things. You're not betraying your son, you're holding him accountable. And what happens after we get this recording? We arrest him. First-time offender. He's looking at maybe 18 months if he cooperates. And if he doesn't? 5 to 10 years in state prison. Detective, I need you to understand something. Your son isn't going to stop with you. Fraudsters like him are predators. If you don't stop him now, he'll find other victims. That decided it. I couldn't live with myself if Marcus hurt other families. Let's do this. I returned home to find Marcus waiting on my porch, pacing like a caged animal. His expensive clothes were rumpled, and he'd clearly been running hands through his hair. Dad, where have you been? I went for a drive. Needed to think. I stepped inside, Marcus close behind. Through the window, I could see the surveillance van disguised as a cable truck. Think about what? The pension office says there's an investigation. I settled into my armchair. Marcus, sit down. We need to talk. He perched on the couch edge. What's going on? Now you're facing the consequences of your choices. His face went still. What do you mean? I thought about Rodriguez's instructions. Get him talking. Ask direct questions. Marcus, I need you to be honest. Are you really planning to invest my pension money with Meridian Capital? Of course. Why would you ask that? Because I did some checking. Meridian Capital doesn't take individual investors. Their minimum is $5 million. Marcus's face went white, but he tried to bluff. That's not true. Stop lying to me. I kept my voice calm, hoping the recording equipment would pick up every word. I know Meridian won't take my money. I know you owe more than $50,000. I know the whole pitch was fake. For a long moment, Marcus just stared. Then his shoulders sagged. How did you find out? I may be old, but I'm not stupid. Marcus, how much do you really owe? 200,000, maybe more. I stopped counting after 6 figures. There it is, I thought. Admission number 1. And what were you planning to do with my pension money? Marcus looked up, tears in his eyes. I was going to pay off the debts threatening to get me killed, then invest the rest. I swear, Dad, I was going to make sure you got your money back. By stealing it from me first? It's not stealing if I'm planning to pay it back. Admission number 2. Marcus, if this Meridian deal was real, why did you need me to sign power of attorney papers? Because pension rollovers are complicated. Or because you were planning to transfer my money to accounts you control, then disappear. Marcus went very still. Dad, that's not. Ashley mentioned Costa Rica last night. Nice place for a destination wedding. Also nice for hiding from American law enforcement. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. These people I owe money to won't just forgive the debt. So you decided to steal from your father instead of facing your mistakes. I was going to pay you back. Every penny, with interest. This was supposed to be temporary. Admission number 3. Temporary theft is still theft, son. Marcus stared at me with growing horror. Dad, why are you talking like this? Like you're trying to get me to confess to something. My blood went cold. He was getting suspicious. I'm trying to understand how my son became someone who would steal from his own father. I never wanted to steal from you. But what choice did I have? You've got $500,000 sitting there, and I'm looking at having my legs broken. Admission number 4. So you thought you'd solve your problems by destroying my retirement? I thought I'd solve both our problems. The money was just going to sit there earning 2% while you live on Social Security. Except for the part where you were planning to disappear to Costa Rica. Marcus's eyes narrowed. I never said anything about disappearing. You didn't have to. The destination wedding, the non-extradition country, the fake power of attorney papers. Those papers weren't fake. Yes, they were. I had my attorney check them. The documents you have are worthless photocopies. Marcus shot to his feet. That's impossible. Rex helped me switch them while you were in the kitchen last night. You were so eager to get my signature, you never checked if they were genuine. You planned this? I protected myself from being robbed by my own son. Marcus stared in disbelief. You set me up. I protected myself. Dad, you don't understand. If I can't get that money, then you should have thought of that before you borrowed money you couldn't repay. The recording device felt like it was burning. I had everything Rodriguez needed. Clear admissions of intent to defraud, conspiracy to commit theft, elder abuse. Dad, please. We can still make this work. Why would I do that? Because I'm your son. If you don't, these people will kill me. Then you should have come to me honestly instead of trying to steal from me. You would have said no. You're right. Because $200,000 is more money than I've ever had. Because I'm 66, and that pension is all that stands between me and poverty. Marcus's face crumpled. So you're just going to let me die? I'm going to let you face the results of your actions. Marcus's eyes darted toward the door. Time to end this. Marcus, there's something else you should know. What? The police are already involved. Every word of this conversation has been recorded. His face went white. What are you saying? I'm saying you've just confessed to attempted elder fraud, conspiracy to commit theft, and a dozen other crimes. Car doors started slamming outside. Dad, you can't. I already have. The doorbell rang. Detective Rodriguez and his partner entered with efficient calm. Marcus sat frozen, watching his world collapse. Marcus Corrigan, you're under arrest for attempted elder fraud, conspiracy to commit theft, and criminal solicitation. The handcuffs clicked with finality. As they read his rights, Marcus kept staring at me with disbelief. Dad, you can't do this. I'm your son. Yes. And that's what makes this so heartbreaking. They led him toward the door, but he turned back. I want to make a deal. I can give you information about other people involved. Rodriguez paused. What kind of information? Ashley's been running a whole network of these scams. She taught me how to target elderly victims, how to build trust, how to get them to sign over power of attorney. Other victims. I felt sick thinking about how many families Marcus and Ashley had destroyed. She has a whole system. Marcus continued desperately. Fake investment companies, forged documents, offshore accounts. I can give you names, account numbers, everything. Rodriguez made a quick call, then looked at Marcus. We'll discuss cooperation after you're booked. No, you don't understand. She's planning to disappear. If you don't move today, she'll be gone. Rodriguez got Ashley's address and descriptions, coordinating with other units. The more Marcus talked, the more I realized how deep this conspiracy went. How many people have you two stolen from? I asked. Marcus couldn't meet my eyes. Maybe a dozen. Maybe more. How much money? Total? Probably close to $1 million. $1 million. Stolen from families like mine, from elderly people who'd worked their whole lives. As they put him in the police car, I watched through my window as they drove away with my only child. The house felt different immediately, lighter, as if a weight had been lifted. But it wasn't over yet. At the police station, I spent 3 hours giving my statement. They had me go through the entire story, from Marcus's first approach to his final confession on the recording. Mr. Corrigan, the prosecutor said, your son has agreed to cooperate fully. He's providing information that will help us recover money and arrest other criminals. What does that mean for his sentence? If he testifies truthfully, instead of 5 to 10 years, he'd be looking at 18 to 24 months. How many other victims? Based on your son's information, at least 15 families across 3 states. Total losses of approximately $1.2 million. And how much can be recovered? We've frozen several offshore accounts. We should recover about 60%. Better than nothing, but still hundreds of thousands lost forever. Your son's girlfriend, Ashley, she's been running similar operations in other cities. The FBI is coordinating a multi-state takedown. How many people is she suspected of defrauding? Potentially hundreds. Your decision to fight back has probably saved a lot of families. I felt grim satisfaction, tempered by knowledge that my son had been part of something so destructive. When will he be sentenced? Arraignment tomorrow. Sentencing in 3 to 4 months. The next day, I sat in Judge Walsh's courtroom watching Marcus's arraignment. He looked smaller in the orange jumpsuit, younger and more vulnerable. The public defender was a tired-looking woman who'd clearly handled hundreds of similar cases. The defendant is charged with attempted elder fraud, conspiracy to commit theft, and criminal solicitation, the prosecutor announced. The state has evidence including recorded confessions and documentary proof of intent to defraud his elderly father of $500,000. Judge Walsh looked down at Marcus. How do you plead? Not guilty, Your Honor. The words hit me like a slap. After everything, the recording, the confessions, the cooperation, he was still going to fight it. Your Honor, Marcus's lawyer said, my client was under severe duress. He had received credible threats against his life and was acting out of desperation. Duress. Make Marcus the victim instead of the criminal. Furthermore, Mr. Corrigan never actually took any money. No funds were transferred. No theft occurred. The prosecutor stood immediately. Your Honor, the defendant made detailed plans to defraud his father, obtained fraudulent documents, and has confessed to these crimes on tape. I'll hear arguments on bail, Judge Walsh said. The state requests bail be denied, the prosecutor argued. The defendant is a flight risk who was planning to flee the country with stolen funds. Your Honor, my client has been fully cooperative. He has provided valuable information and has agreed to testify against co-conspirators. Judge Walsh considered. Bail is set at $100,000. The defendant will surrender his passport. Next court date is November 15th. $100,000. No way Marcus could make that. He'd be spending months in county jail. After the hearing, Detective Rodriguez approached me. Not guilty plea. That's going to make things complicated. What does it mean? Means we're going to trial. Means you'll probably have to testify. Means this drags out for months. And the cooperation agreement? Still in effect, as long as he provides truthful information. But if he's convicted at trial, the judge won't be as inclined toward leniency. 3 weeks later, Rodriguez called with an update. We arrested Ashley Morrison in Phoenix. She was trying to board a flight to Mexico using a fake passport. Did she resist? Let's just say she didn't go quietly. When we searched her hotel room, we found documents related to at least 30 different victims across 6 states. 30 victims? Total losses between $3 and $4 million. The number was staggering. What does this mean for Marcus's case? Good news and bad news. Good news is Ashley's arrest validates his cooperation. Bad news is it proves he was involved in a much larger criminal enterprise. Has Marcus provided information that's helped find other victims? Absolutely. His cooperation has been essential to building cases against other defendants. When is the trial? January 15th. Should take about a week. In December, Rodriguez called with another development. Marcus wants to change his plea to guilty, but his lawyer is advising against it. Why? Because Ashley Morrison is claiming Marcus was the mastermind. She's saying he recruited her, taught her the scams, and threatened her when she wanted to quit. I felt the bottom drop out. Is that true? Based on evidence, absolutely not. Marcus was clearly a junior partner. But Ashley's lawyer is trying to shift all blame onto your son. What does that mean? If the jury believes Ashley's version, Marcus could face decades instead of months. But you have evidence she's lying? We do, but proving it at trial will be complicated. Ashley is smart, articulate, and her lawyer is very good. What happens if Marcus pleads guilty now? If he pleads guilty and continues cooperating, we can argue Ashley's trying to manipulate the system. And if he goes to trial? Then it becomes a credibility contest between Marcus and Ashley. I realized I needed to do something I'd sworn I wouldn't. Visit my son in jail. The county jail visiting room was concrete walls, fluorescent lighting, and the smell of industrial disinfectant. When Marcus appeared, I almost didn't recognize him. He'd lost 20 pounds, His face was pale, and his hair had grown into an unkempt mess. Dad, I didn't think you'd come. I didn't think I would either. Marcus, Detective Rodriguez says you want to plead guilty. I do. I'm tired of lying, tired of fighting, tired of pretending I didn't do exactly what you recorded me confessing to. Your lawyer thinks you should fight. My lawyer thinks a lot of things. Most of them wrong. Marcus rubbed his eyes. Dad, I've had 3 months to think about what I did. I want to take responsibility. Ashley's saying you were the mastermind. Marcus laughed bitterly. Of course she is. Ashley's been running cons since she was 16. She recruited me, taught me everything about targeting vulnerable people. Can you prove that? I can testify truthfully. Whether anyone believes me is another question. Why should I believe you? Marcus looked directly at me for the first time. Because I'm done lying to you, Dad. I tried to steal your pension because I was scared and desperate and stupid. Ashley didn't make me do it. I chose to do it. And now I'm choosing to take responsibility. Even if it means decades in prison? Even if it means dying in prison. I can't undo what I did, but I can stop making it worse. I looked at my son, really looked at him. The expensive clothes were gone, the confident swagger was gone, the manipulative charm was gone. What was left was someone who looked exhausted, defeated, and maybe, finally, honest. Marcus, why did you really start gambling? Because I was afraid of ending up like you. The words hit like a physical blow, but he kept talking. I was afraid of working 40 years at a job I hated, barely scraping by, watching the woman I loved die slowly because we couldn't afford better care. I wanted more than that. So you decided to steal your way to wealth. I decided to take shortcuts. And every shortcut led to a bigger shortcut, until I was planning to steal $500,000 from my own father. Marcus's voice broke. I became everything you taught me not to be. Yes, you did. I know you'll never forgive me. But Dad, I need you to know, when I was planning this, there was still a part of me that loved you, that hated what I was doing. Not enough to stop you. No, not enough to stop me. We sat in silence, 42 years of father-son relationship hanging between us like a lead curtain. Marcus, if you plead guilty, what kind of sentence are you looking at? Best case, 2 to 3 years. Worst case, if Ashley convinces everyone I was the mastermind, life in prison. And you're willing to take that risk? I'm willing to tell the truth and accept the consequences. Finally, I looked at my son, this broken, defeated man who'd once been a bright little boy with unlimited potential, and made a decision. I'll testify for you. What? At your sentencing hearing. I'll tell the judge about the Marcus I raised, about the good man you used to be. I'll ask for leniency. Marcus stared in shock. Dad, you don't have to. I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for the 8-year-old boy who used to help me work in the garage. For the teenager who cried when our dog died. I stood up. That person is gone. But maybe he deserves to be remembered. I don't deserve your help. No, you don't. But I'm giving it to you anyway. On January 15th, I sat in Judge Walsh's courtroom as Marcus formally changed his plea to guilty. Mr. Corrigan, Judge Walsh said, do you understand that by pleading guilty, you face a potential sentence of up to 15 years in state prison? Yes, Your Honor. And you're entering this plea freely and voluntarily? Yes, Your Honor. Very well. I accept your guilty plea. Sentencing is scheduled for February 12th. The sentencing hearing was packed. Victims from across 3 states had come to tell Judge Walsh how Marcus and Ashley's crimes had affected their lives. I listened to story after story of elderly people losing their life savings, of families torn apart by betrayal, of trust destroyed by greed. Eleanor Martinez, 73, spoke about losing her late husband's life insurance money she'd planned to use for her granddaughter's college tuition. Now the girl was working 2 jobs to pay for community college. Robert Fletcher, 81, talked about the retirement account Marcus had convinced him to invest in a fake oil drilling venture. The money was gone, and Robert was back to working part-time at a hardware store to pay for his medications. Susan Williams, 69, broke down crying as she described how Ashley had befriended her at a grief support group, then convinced her to invest her dead husband's pension in a fraudulent real estate scheme. She'd lost her house and was now living with her daughter's family. Each story was a variation on the same theme: trust exploited, hope destroyed, futures stolen by people who saw elderly victims as nothing more than walking ATM machines. When it was my turn to speak, I walked to the podium with a prepared statement, but found myself setting it aside. The words I'd written the night before seemed inadequate in the face of all this pain. Your Honor, Marcus Corrigan is my son. 3 months ago, he sat in my living room and tried to convince me to sign over my pension. $500,000 that represents 40 years of honest work. He lied to me, manipulated me, and planned to disappear with everything I'd worked my entire life to build. I looked at Marcus, sitting at the defendant's table in his orange jumpsuit. He looked smaller than I remembered, diminished by months in county jail and the weight of his crimes. He deserves to be punished for what he did. He deserves to face the consequences of his choices. But he also deserves credit for finally telling the truth, for cooperating with law enforcement, and for helping other victims get at least some of their money back. I turned back to the judge. Your Honor, I'm not asking you to forgive my son. I'm asking you to give him a chance to earn forgiveness, to serve his time, pay his debt to society, and maybe, someday, become the man I thought I was raising. When I sat down, the courtroom was silent except for the quiet sobbing of one of the victims in the gallery. Marcus's lawyer presented evidence of his cooperation. Bank records showing the recovery of stolen funds. FBI reports documenting his assistance in building cases against other criminals. Testimony from prosecutors about his value as a witness. The prosecutor acknowledged his help while emphasizing the serious nature of his crimes and their impact on vulnerable victims. Finally, Judge Walsh asked Marcus if he wanted to speak. Marcus stood slowly, his orange jumpsuit wrinkled from months of wear, his hair grown out and unkempt. The confident, well-dressed businessman who tried to steal my pension was gone, replaced by someone who looked genuinely broken. Your Honor, I've spent the last 4 months in county jail trying to understand how I became someone who would steal from his own father. I think I know now. I was scared. Scared of being poor, scared of working my whole life for nothing, scared of watching the people I love suffer because I couldn't provide for them. Marcus's voice was steady, controlled, but I could hear the emotion underneath. But fear doesn't excuse what I did. Fear doesn't justify betraying the man who raised me, who taught me right from wrong, who worked 40 years to build the modest retirement I was planning to steal. He looked directly at me, and for a moment I saw the little boy who used to crawl into my lap during thunderstorms. I'm guilty of everything the prosecution charged me with. I'm guilty of crimes against my father, against my family, and against every elderly person who trusted me with their life savings. I accept full responsibility for my actions, and I'm prepared to face whatever sentence you impose. Judge Walsh was quiet for a long moment, reviewing the sentencing guidelines and the evidence presented. The courtroom held its breath, waiting for her decision. Mr. Corrigan, you have pleaded guilty to serious crimes that strike at the heart of family trust and social stability. Elder fraud is particularly despicable because it targets our most vulnerable citizens, people who should be able to trust their families and live their final years in security and dignity. Marcus stood straighter, preparing for the worst. However, the court also notes your cooperation with law enforcement, your assistance in recovering stolen funds for other victims, and your evident remorse for your actions. The court sentences you to 36 months in state prison, followed by 3 years of supervised probation. 3 years. It was on the high end of what we'd expected, but far less than the decades he could have faced if he'd been convicted as the mastermind of the operation. Furthermore, Judge Walsh continued, you are ordered to pay full restitution to all victims, totaling $847,000. This restitution includes $50,000 to your father for emotional distress and legal fees. As they led Marcus away to begin his sentence, he turned back to look at me one last time. I saw something in his eyes that I hadn't seen in years. Acceptance. Not hope, not defiance, not manipulation. Just acceptance of the consequences he'd finally stopped running from. I walked out of the courthouse into the crisp winter air, feeling lighter than I had in months. The legal proceedings were over. Justice had been served. Marcus would spend the next 3 years in prison, and I would spend them rebuilding my life and my faith in my own judgment. 3 weeks later, I was reading the morning paper when the doorbell rang. A delivery man stood on my porch holding a small package. Elias Corrigan? That's me. Sign here, please. I took the package inside and examined it carefully. No return address, but postmarked from the state prison. Despite the court order prohibiting contact, Marcus had found a way to send me something. Inside was a letter, written in Marcus's familiar handwriting on prison stationery. Dad, I know I'm not supposed to contact you, and I know this letter violates the court order. I'm willing to face the consequences for that. But there are things I need to tell you. Things I should have said in court, but didn't have the courage to say. You were right about everything. The investment scheme was fake. The amount I owed was more than I told you. I was planning to take your money and disappear. Everything you accused me of was true. But what I never told you, what I couldn't bring myself to admit even to myself, was why I started this in the first place. It wasn't because I was greedy or because I thought I could get rich quick. It was because I was terrified of becoming you. I watched you work 40 years at that steel mill, coming home exhausted and covered in metal dust, scraping together every penny. I watched you count and recount the medical bills when Mom got sick, saw the look in your eyes when the doctors mentioned treatments we couldn't afford. I watched the woman we both loved apologize for being expensive while she was dying. That's what broke me, Dad. Not greed. Fear. Fear that I'd end up like you, powerless to save the people I love because I didn't have enough money. Fear that I'd spend my whole life working honest jobs for honest pay while the people I cared about suffered because honest wasn't enough. So I tried to take shortcuts. Get rich quick. Make enough money fast enough that I'd never have to watch someone I loved die while I counted pennies. But every shortcut led to a bigger shortcut, until I was planning to steal $500,000 from the one man who'd sacrificed everything to raise me. The sick irony is that I became exactly what I was trying to avoid, someone who hurts the people he loves. I became worse than powerless. I became destructive. I know you'll never forgive me for what I did. I know I destroyed our family. But I need you to understand that when I looked at your life, I saw failure. A good man who worked hard and played by the rules and still couldn't save his wife. I was so afraid of that powerlessness that I became a monster instead. I was wrong about you, Dad. You're not a failure. You're the strongest man I know. You built a life worth living through honest work and sacrifice. I threw away everything you taught me because I was too proud and too scared to follow your example. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know that sitting in this cell, I finally understand what real strength looks like. It looks like 40 years of showing up. It looks like doing right even when it costs you everything. It looks like the man who raised me to be better than I became. I love you, Dad. And I'm sorry it took me so long to realize that becoming you wouldn't have been a failure. It would have been an honor. Marcus. I read the letter 3 times, my hands shaking. Then I walked to Martha's bedroom, the room I'd barely entered since she died, and sat on her side of the bed. All those months, I'd wondered how we could afford the experimental treatments. All those times Martha had apologized for being expensive. All those specialist appointments and alternative therapies that seemed to appear out of nowhere. Marcus hadn't been stealing to fund a gambling addiction or support a lavish lifestyle. He'd been stealing to pay for his mother's cancer treatments, to buy her time, to give her hope. And she died anyway, never knowing that her son had become a criminal to save her life. I sat there holding the letter, thinking about justice and mercy and the terrible things people do for love. Marcus had stolen from innocent people. He'd lied and manipulated and betrayed everyone who trusted him. But he'd done it all to save his mother. The last gambit was complete. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I wasn't sure who had really won. I drop 2 stories a day. Please subscribe to my channel so you don't miss them. If you enjoyed this story, click on one of the boxes showing on your screen for more. Thank you for listening.